Good evening, everyone. Welcome to finally, after a long period of silence, real silence, that is. Welcome finally to another episode of Nick Files. Of course, I am your host, Nick Muley. I know originally we were supposed to be starting with the show last week, but unfortunately, due to technical issues and also some other issues before that in the following weeks, we were unable to. I was unable to really bring the show as I wanted it to be, and the last time that I did, the slideshow didn't really work out as well as I was hoping so. So we are going to try this again because good news is the slideshow I'll be presenting tonight is already completed. I actually found a lot more information about this case more than what I had attempted to about 2 weeks earlier. Just a quick shout out, for those that are commenting right now. Hello, Nigel. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. And once again, for some reason whatsoever, StreamYard is not showing all of the comments. So let me just go on one of the other pages. Yeah. What's up, Eric? Yeah, there's always tech issues. Well, of course there is. Hang on one second here. Okay. Yeah, so just to give the shout outs too, because the only network that's not running on StreamYard is the ParaUnity network. So I just want to make sure. Okay, there's no one watching right now, but we'll probably see comments as the show progresses. What's going on, Patricia? Good to see you. So for tonight's episode, again, this is one I'm really looking forward to present. Oh, hey, Laura, good to see you. So for tonight's episode that I'm really looking forward to presenting, we're going to be focusing on, as I always like to say, the shocking true story behind The Conjuring 2, in which this case we'll be focusing on. Let me get the slideshow ready. Of course, as always, I got to check to make sure that the slideshow is showing on the screen. Okay, cool. All right, so we'll be focusing in this case on the true story of the Enfield haunting or the Enfield poltergeist, if you want to, whichever way you want to put it. And this is gonna be a good one. I said this earlier on the announcement post earlier. This is going to be a pretty big slideshow, so I already know for a fact this is going to be a slide. This is one that I already know is going to be is already going to be split into two parts, maybe even three. I mean, this is going to be the slideshow that I think is going to rival. I haven't done such a big presentation like this since the Amityville horror presentation. So even though I created it, this is the type of presentation I think will basically rival the Amityville horror presentation. That's that's just the way how I picture it. And from this point on, by the way, once again, like I always say right at the beginning of these slideshows, I won't be able to really see people's comments while I'm doing this. So I'll be keeping my phone right next to me. That way I could try to respond to and answer as many questions as possible um, to those who are commenting. So see here, making one last check just before we get started. See who else do we have who just tuned in? Okay, nothing on Things Network page. Anyone on Simply Spook? Hey Rita, good to see you. All right, and finally, I'm gonna just check one more page. What's up, Emma? Good to see you. All right, so therefore, let's get started. Now, here's something that we're going to proceed a little bit differently. I think a lot of you guys remember whenever I did my slideshows, I often usually start off with the history of these locations. But this case that we're focusing on, there's not really very much history, like actual historical background uh, behind this location. I was only able to find a little bit of history on it, but for the most part, it really just goes right down to the haunting. So that's where we're gonna. That's how we're gonna begin it. So hopefully it's something you guys will. Either way, this is gonna be awesome to talk about. Okay, so On the evening of Tuesday, August 30th, 1977, Peggy Hodgson, a 47-year-old divorced mother of four, and her brother John Burcombe heard loud noises and shuffling coming from her daughter's bedroom at her cramped council house, 284 Green, it's supposed to be Green Street, I think, Ponder's End, Enfield, which was actually the poorest part of the borough at around 9:30 p.m. When she went into her children's bedroom to tell them to stop fighting and go to sleep, she found them, two sisters, 11-year-old Janet and 13-year-old Margaret, huddled in the corner with terrified expressions on their faces. They were complaining that the bed was shaking and that there was an unamiable presence in the room. But thinking no more of it, she went to bed. We told our mom the chest of drawers was moving towards the bedroom door. Janet recalled while speaking on ITV in 2012. She said, "Oh, don't be silly. The house in is okay, I already said that before, but it doesn't matter. The house is 284 Green Street, a 3-bedroom council-owned semi-detached house dating from the 1920s. Of course, these are the original photos of it when it was photos of it back in the 70s. Peggy Hodgson was considered by those who knew her to be a pleasant and conscientious person, overcoming financial insecurity to do her best for her children. Margaret was serious and reserved. Janet, lively and extrovert. 10-year-old Johnny was only at home during the school holidays and some weekends since he boarded at a special school. The youngest child, 6-year-old Billy, suffered from a severe speech defect, but in other respects was a typical little boy. Mrs. Hodgson's brother, John Burcombe, a hospital worker, lived nearby at 272 Green Street with his wife, Sylvia, and 2 children, Paul and Denise. What's up, Candace? The 2 families appeared to be close, and John was supportive toward the Hodgsons. The Hodgsons' next door 282 neighbors were builder Vic Nottingham, a roofer, his wife, also named Peggy, and their 20-year-old son, Gary. Relations between the families were seen to be friendly and supportive. Unfortunately, I was unable to find a photograph of them. Trust me, I tried looking, but I couldn't. I really don't know why there's no photos. Although I did manage to find them in some film footage of them being interviewed. So going back to that was just a little bit of background on the family and neighbors itself, but going back onto the activity that was occurring the next night on Wednesday, August 31st, she heard a shuffling noise like someone walking about on the linoleum in slippers, and then 4 loud knocks. A chest of drawers slid 18 inches across the floor without any apparent physical contact. Peggy pushed it back and it slid forward again in the direction of the door by a seemingly invisible force, almost as if some supernatural presence was trying to trap the girls in the room and locking Peggy out of the girls' room. She tried to push it back, but couldn't as it wouldn't budge. In a recorded interview, she recalls what happened. "I just couldn't believe it. In fact, I pushed it back twice, and a third time I couldn't move it. The uncanny event was accompanied by repeated knocking noises. By then, she was convinced." She was dumbfounded, really, the adult Janet recalled for writer Will Storr in 2015. She pushed it back and it started to move again. She tried to push it back again and it wouldn't move. So she said, "Right, we'll go downstairs." It was very nervy. There was a funny atmosphere in the house. And then the knocking started. Terrified, the family fled and ran across the street to ask for help from their neighbors, Vic and Peggy Nottingham at 282 Green Street. Looks like there's some repetitive parts here. Of course, I'll make sure to fix that up later. What the? Wait a minute. Hang on 1 second here, guys. I just looked at the monitor here and hang on. I just noticed my picture's kind of going out a few times on the camera. Sorry. Hang on. Oh man, what's going on here? I don't know what's okay. We're gonna have to go without the green screen because I'm not sure why it's acting this way. That's whoa. The hell's going on here? Uh-oh. That's not good. That's the first time that's happened. Hang on. Damn. Okay, we're all right, we're gonna have to deal with this later because I'm not sure what's going on with the camera right now. That was I'm gonna have to go without it. So sorry about that, guys. That is just weird. The camera was just working fine earlier. Okay. All right, we're just gonna have to continue onwards then. So, according to the family, that was just the beginning of what would become their nearly 18-month haunting. While some called it a hoax, others consider it to be one of the most witnessed cases of supernatural activity to date. Janet and Margaret Hodgson, the two daughters at the center of the case, were recently interviewed about their experiences all those years ago. Margaret recounts that we was all in a terrible state, very scared and tired of it, and it got worse as the time went on. Sorry, I got a little bit behind on the pictures because again, I that was just bizarre with the camera. All right, so the next night on Thursday, September 1st, Vic and Gary went back to the house to investigate. They too said they heard strange noises and further knocks coming from around the home and was attacked with a flying Lego. He later stated that he could find no source for the knocks, which seemed to follow him round the house. Vic was no better to explain what he witnessed. I heard knocking as I walked in the front door. I went all over the house, just couldn't make out what it was, so in the end I thought, there's only one thing. I'll call the police. Thinking someone was playing a prank, they called the Metropolitan Police, who came out to the house at around 1 a.m. The police, WPC Carolyn Heaps and PC Hyams, who first on the scene, checked the walls, attic, and pipes, but could find nothing to explain the tapping. Carolyn reported witnessing a chair wobble and slide, but could not determine the cause of the movements. WPC Carolyn Heaps brought an immediate validity to the Enfield case in the start in that she gave a sworn fifth of I can't even say that word, damn it, of her paranormal experience and testified to the investigators as follows. On Thursday, September 1st, 1977, at approximately 1 a.m., I was on duty in my capacity as a policewoman when I received a radio message to 284 Wood Street, Enfield. I went to this address where I found a number of people standing in the living room. I was told by the occupier of this house that many strange things had been happening during the last few nights and that they believed that the house was haunted. Myself and another PC entered the living room of the house, and the occupiers switched off the lights. Almost immediately, I heard the sound of knocking on the wall that backs onto the next door neighbor's house. There were 4 distinct taps on the wall, and then silence. About 2 minutes later, I heard more tapping, but this time it was coming from a different wall. Again, it was a distinctive peal of 4 taps. The PC and the neighbors checked the walls, attic, and pipes, but could find nothing to explain the knockings. The PC and neighbors, oh wait, the PC and the Oh, okay. The PC and the neighbors all went into the kitchen to check the refrigerator pipes, etc., leaving the family and myself in the living room. The lights in the living room were switched off again, and within a few minutes, the eldest son pointed to a chair which was standing next to the sofa. I I looked at the chair and noticed that it was wobbling slightly from side to side. I then saw the chair slide across the floor towards the kitchen wall. It moved approximately 3 to 4 feet and then came to rest. At no time did it appear to leave the floor. I checked the chair, but could find nothing to explain how it had moved. The lights were switched back on. Nothing else happened that night, although we have later reports of disturbances at this address. They deduced that it was not a police matter and quickly exited the house. The disturbances only got worse from there. Later claims included disembodied voices, loud noises, toys being thrown, overturned chairs, writing appearing on the walls, and even children levitating. These are some of the actual photos of some of the apparent objects that were thrown about by the poltergeist. Janet told ITV that cups would inexplicably fill with water. Things would the photo actually with the cups right there along with the plants, those were taken I think around the same time, where these plants were at the kitchen at first, but then eventually they were found along with these cups that mysteriously would fill with water. In addition, things would also randomly burst into flame, and that disembodied voices would speak to them too. Marbles and Lego flew around the house for the next 3 days, and various people visited in an effort to help, including members of the council, clergymen, and others, but none of these deterred the phenomena, which continued unabated. At a loss as what to do, on Sunday, September 4th, Mrs. Nottingham called the Daily Mirror, hoping that they could do something to help. Now, I do apologize if some of the text is a little bit small, but obviously I'll be reading it, so you guys don't have to worry about this. The Mirror sent reporter Douglas Bent and 21-year-old photographer Graham Morris to capture the hauntings. Vic Nottingham rang 3 or 4 times and Tom fobbed him off, Bent recalls. But eventually I said, look, we've got nothing to do. Let's go and look. Graham Morris recalls what happened when a call came through to the newspaper and he was dispatched to the Hodgson's house on an assignment that he now describes as life-changing. I was told the police had been called and they'd seen weird things happening, so I didn't really know what to expect at the time, Graham tells the Sun. I initially thought it was going to be a load of rubbish. But when they arrived, the house sat for hours. First impressions are always important as a reporter. And this was a photo of him interviewing some of the children. Somehow that accidentally put a repeat on that. Ben says my first feeling when I went into that house was to feel desperately sorry for this family. It was a very poor household. Single mother, 4 children, youngest boy with learning disabilities, signs of deprivation. The 2 girls were upset and politely explained what had happened over tea, but Benson Norris found the accounts a little vague to hang a story on, so they said their goodbyes and headed out. It wasn't until the reporter was about to leave that something happened and all hell broke loose. Vic ran to the car and told them to come back. It was happening again. We went back inside. The girls were screaming. The boys were screaming. It was absolutely chaos. This was a small terraced house, so the space was cramped. There were 9 people in the room, the family, the neighbors, and us. You couldn't put your hand on your heart and say you saw anything, but there were objects flying. Graham was hit with a Lego brick. I think he's still got the scar to prove it, said Douglas Betts. Positioning himself in a corner of the kitchen to take pictures, Graham realized that there was a terror lurking among them. Graham says the children came in one after the other with adults, but nothing happened until Janet walked in. It was unbelievable. Things were just flying all over the room. Little things like toys, marbles, and Lego bricks. I tried to get a picture of something flying across the room, but everything was moving so fast. You couldn't preempt where the next object would come flying from. It was coming in from all angles. With so many things being moved by an unseen force, Graham was hit near the eye by an item. He says his sight was saved thanks to the fact that he was wearing glasses. Graham Morris later said, I thought it was an ordinary job until I walked into the house. I stood in the gloom in the kitchen, and one by one they brought the children into the adults' arms, and the last one to come in was Janet. Suddenly things just uh okay, yeah. Suddenly things just took off and started flying around the room. I got hit by a Lego brick over by my right eye. It gave me a lump for a few days. There was a fair bit of force. There were marbles and things left in the kitchen that were just flying around the room. I was watching all of the family, and none of them was doing anything. He adds, I was hit in the eyebrow, and although it didn't draw blood, I got one hell of a lump. Whatever this was, you had the feeling that it was out to get you. It didn't like the fact that I was taking pictures. I could see the fear on the family's face as a tornado of objects flew around his head. Graham Morris couldn't help but think, the ghost is out to get me. This ghost is out to get me. The Enfield case might be one of the best documented paranormal cases in history, thanks to Morris's disturbing pictures of his visit to the Hodgson house. Among these images is a photo of Janet being tossed across the bedroom and levitating by the poltergeist while her sister watches in horror. Although he wasn't actually present in the room with the camera. In the photo, Janet looks to have come up from a prone position, flying across the room, and she's in midair. So these are the first series of photographs that were taken of the supposed levitations of Janet, and certainly is certainly a terrifying sight, that's for sure. But obviously, though, to be on a little bit on the skeptical side, as one might suspect from watching The Conjuring 2, it's very possible that the picture is staged. Janet leaping off her bed and onto the floor, but one can only go by Morris's account here, and he seemed convinced. It was chaos. Things started flying around. People were screaming. Morris said of his visit, according to the Daily Mail. The photographer came back and, they're really talking about the Lego brick. The photographer came back and a Lego brick hit him above the eye. He still had the mark a few days later. And then Maurice Grosse came in on the case, Janet said. Keeps saying according to the Daily Mail. So George Follows, a senior reporter at the Mirror, and photographer David Thorpe visited the house on what day was this again? That was on I forgot to put the actual day. Let's see. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. Visited the house on September 7th. Follows believed at first that Peggy was playing tricks in order to get a new council house, but he soon realized that something serious was going on. Follows gave this account of events that he witnessed. Because of the emotional atmosphere at the house and in the neighborhood, ranging from hysteria through terror to excitement and tension, it has been difficult to record satisfactory data. Nevertheless, I am satisfied the overall impression of our investigation is reasonably accurate. To the best of our ability, we have eliminated the possibility of total trickery, although we have been able to simulate most of the phenomena. In my opinion, this faking could only be done by an expert. Follow suggested contacting the Society for Psychical Research, SPR, and spoke to the secretary, Eleanor O'Keefe, and was put in contact with Maurice Gross, a relatively new member of the society who had joined after the death of his daughter the year before and declared his willingness to act as an investigator if any interesting cases should arise. Gross was a successful inventor responsible among many innovations for the rotating advertising billboard. His interest in paranormal phenomena had been awakened by a series of meaningful coincidences that followed the death of his daughter, ironically enough, also named Janet, in August 1976, of head injury sustained during a motorcycle accident. He became the examiner leading the investigation. Gross visited the house on Monday, September 5th. Gross said of that first visit, I found, okay, sorry. Gross said of that first visit, I found chaos. The whole family was congregated in the house together with the neighbors next door, and there were a lot of very, very frightened people there. He advised Mrs. Hodgson to remain calm and recommended she take notes of any incidents. During his stay at the house, Gross has said he witnessed more than 2,000 different incidents of supernatural activity. When I first got there, nothing happened for a while. Then I experienced Lego pieces flying across the room and marbles, and the extraordinary thing was when you picked them up, they were hot. Gross told writer Will Storr about the first days of his investigations via the Daily Mail. I was standing in the kitchen and a t-shirt leapt off the table and flew into the other side of the room while I was standing by it. Now, it should be noted, I mean, I know I haven't really gave really any of my own self notes, if you want to call it that way, is the one thing that I thought was, the one thing I think we're all familiar with, I know we've been hearing so much about these Legos and marbles and other items that are being tossed around. I mean, you have to remember that's pretty much typical of poltergeist activity because a lot of items will tend to get thrown around, sometimes being tossed around repeatedly. So it's just really interesting how some of the poltergeist phenomenon tries to what's the I guess present itself, if you will. So over the period of 18 months, more than 30 people, including the Hodgson's neighbors, psychic researchers, journalists, and even the local lollipop lady said they variously saw and heard heavy furniture moving of its own accord, objects being thrown across a room, unexplained knocking noises, and the sisters seeming to levitate several feet off the ground. Gross and the members of the press waited to witness any incidents, and on Wednesday, September 8th, at 1:15 a.m., they rushed into the children's bedroom after hearing a loud crash. The two sisters were still asleep, but a chair had flipped over and moved. Okay, yeah, the pictures are running late for some reason here, but I got it now. The two sisters were still asleep, but a chair had flipped over and moved a meter across the room. These are the actual photos, I believe, right before this happened. And this was when the chair was flipped over. Convinced that Hodgson's claims were genuine, this was enough to convince Maurice to stay and further investigate. During subsequent visits, he and others observed marbles once again that flew through the air and landed on the floor without rolling, doors and drawers that opened of their own accord, door chimes that swung, objects, teaspoon, cardboard box, fish tank lid that jumped. The movements were witnessed by Gross, the movements were witnessed by Gross, the Hodgsons, Peggy Nottingham's father, and 4 reporters and photographers from the Daily Mirror. At this relatively early stage, as many as 10 people not related to the family had witnessed the phenomena at first hand. On Friday, September 10th, the Daily Mirror broke the story, describing it as the House of Strange Happenings. Later that evening, Peggy appeared on a radio program called Nightline on LBC, a London radio station. When Peggy arrived home after the show, she was greeted by the BBC's Rosalind Morris from the Radio 4 show, The World This Weekend. Roz joined Gross on an all-night vigil and also witnessed some paranormal activity. After the girls went to bed, there was a very loud crash upstairs in their bedroom. Something chucked the chair across the room. I'm convinced of that. Gross also saw flying marbles, jumping teaspoons, and boxes and a sofa that rose into the air and crashed down on the floor, upside down. In an interview at the time, he explained when he met his eyes, I have actually seen myself, marbles being thrown about. I have seen the door move without any help. I've also experienced the reduction of temperature. Gross was among several people to witness these events. This once again says about how that included the reporters and next door neighbors. Again, sorry for some of the repetitive info here. He and Graham Morris rigged up a camera that took photos, and when triggered, and managed to capture Janet being thrown from her bed. Graham later said, when I brought back the pictures, people like Maurice told me, whoa, you've got a levitation sequence here. To me, it looked like a girl jumping from the bed, but all these scientists were convinced it was levitation. Now, if I'm correct on what I'm about to show you, these, hopefully I have it done in chronological order. These are the photos of the full levitation of Janet being thrown across the room. So here she is, here at first lying in bed. This is where she starts lifting off, apparently. This one is a little bit blurrier, but this is where I guess she's kind of rising up. And I was actually really surprised that there was that many photos that were taken of this. So it's interesting, especially for something back in 1977 to capture this many photographs. Now, this is basically her up in midair. That's not all of them. There's actually, I got a few more here. So continuing forward. So while I'm putting these up, definitely give your thoughts and opinions on if you think she actually is levitating or if she's just jumping from her bed. This, of course, right here is the most famous of them all, which, of course, I know was eventually used for the credits of The Conjuring 2. So this is the most notorious photo. All right, so while you guys are giving your thoughts and opinions, I'm just going to check the comments very quickly just to see, because, like I said, I can't see when people are commenting while I'm doing this, unfortunately. So let me go back to StreamYard. See who we all have here right now. Just give their comments up on the video. Let's see. Hey, Dustin, good to see you. Evening, Annette. Hello, Christine. Pickle Tom, good to see you. And then over on the Para Unity Network, See what everyone's saying there, because again, that's the only one where I'm unable to see any comments at all. Hello, Candace. Hey, Marianne. Good to see you. All right. Well, surprise. Okay, I haven't really gotten very many responses as far as the photos show, but definitely give them, if you guys want to wait until the end of it, that's fine. See what you guys definitely give your thoughts and opinions if you think the photos are genuine. Whoops, where did hang on one second here. Where is okay, here we go. Wait, that's not it. Oh, wait, Eric just said, well, knowing that when you fall, you're trying to put your legs down and arms out to brace yourself. Looks like she's jumping. Okay, we got one opinion here. Okay, now I'm trying to get back onto the slideshow. This is okay, here we go. All right, so realizing that he was out of his depth, Gross asked the CPR for help in investigating the poltergeist. Author investigator Guy Leon Playfair responded to an appeal to the SPR for assistance by Gross and arrived at the house on Sunday, September 12th. He later wrote the book, This House is Haunted, The True Story of the Enfield Poltergeist, which was by White Crow Books in 1980. Rosalind also visited the house on numerous occasions and made a documentary about the poltergeist in 1978. The TV special aired in 1980, and not long after the height of the events in the late 1970s. Playfair and Gross worked together for more than a year, making a total of 180 visits and 25 all-night vigils at the house. The incidents at Enfield are among the most closely recorded in any poltergeist-type case. Gross, Playfair, Mrs. Hodgson, and many other witnesses kept records of varying levels of detail. Tape recordings, mainly by Playfair and Gross, eventually totaled 180 hours. Oh my goodness, all the stuff with the marbles and Legos. Marbles and pieces of Lego seen traveling through the air at great speed, seemingly emanating from walls or windows. A teapot shook vigorously on a cabinet in the absence of any external vibration. At one point, the lid was bent. This is the actual teapot right here, and you can see part of the lid is indeed bent. Metal spoons were bent, and the lid of it already says that. Okay, I gotta fix that later too. Metal spoons were bent. Again, another example of some of the activity that occurred. This was honestly, by finding these photographs, it was actually quite a rare sight for me to find these, because these are photos that you weren't able to really find on Google Image. I actually got these from there is a Facebook page based solely on the Enfield Poltergeist, so a lot of these photos were borrowed from that page. So of course, all ownership of these photos I did find. Not all of them, at least some of these photos do go to the Enfield Poltergeist Facebook page. The shade of a bedside lamp tilted and then straightened. A toilet door opened and closed when nobody was nearby. Cardboard boxes and cushions were thrown by an unknown force. A slipper was thrown across a room by an unknown source. A framed certificate was pulled off the wall. Gross was alone in the room when this happened, apparently. A bedroom carpet was pulled up at the edge to form an identical shape each time, an effect which Gross was unable to replicate. Now, this photo I'm presenting right here isn't actually obviously the carpet. This was actually a sweater, but this too not only had some of the burn marks, but did in this photo, in this case, did display some of those strange identical shapes that no one else was able to replicate in any way, shape, or form. A settee was levitated and overturned in front of several witnesses. These are the photos of this. I think these photos were taken right after when when it supposedly was levitating, and well, after it levitated and overturned. And then, of course, Janet, as I like previously, was levitated and deposited in different places at different times. Kitchen unit doors slid open of their own accord. Tubular door chimes swung from side to side many times. Footsteps were heard when nobody else was present. Margaret was held fast by an unknown force. This photo right here is actually one of the few photos that I know it looks like a normal photo. It may most likely be the case, but still, the Facebook page that had this photograph did ask exactly what was going on with Margaret's arm in this. I mean, yeah, most likely, as you can see, it looks nothing more than she's just probably reaching down to grab. I think there's a pillow or something here on the floor. I'm not entirely sure, but still, some folks on the page were asking, why would her arm be kind of positioned that kind of way? Knocks, bangs, and crashes were heard, not caused by plumbing, vibration, or other external sources. Coins disappeared from one room and reappeared in another. Small fires started and extinguished themselves without causing damage, except for maybe the items that were on fire in this case, as you can see in this photo. Yeah, these are some of the photos of some of the items that were mysteriously burned. Water appeared in circumstances not understood. Normally reliable electrical equipment, tape recorders, cameras failed to work. This was some of the equipment that was used during the investigation that at times did fail during parts of the investigation. Apparitions were seen, partial and total. The iron frame of a built-in fireplace was wrenched from the wall and almost hit Billy. Excrement appeared in inappropriate places. Written messages, the abusive remarks and swear words in a gruff masculine voice, apparently produced by Janet and sometimes Margaret. Some effects occurred simultaneously. Many were repeated at different times and places, both day and night. Some were seen by members of the public, who in many cases had no interaction with the Hodgson family. They included John Rainbow, a local tradesman, and Hazel Short, a road crossing council employee, otherwise known as a lollipop lady, as I mentioned earlier. According to Gary Playfair, the levitations, which mostly happened to Janet, but on some rare occasions also to Margaret, happened more than 50 times throughout the case, and they were often found to have crisscrossed. The family were chased out of the house on Sunday, September 25th, and sought refuge with Peggy's brother, who lived up the road. While his wife Sylvia made some tea, a Lego brick appeared in front of her and dropped onto the table. It was then that the family realized that the entity could follow them out of the house. Gross and Playfair saw indentations in pillows and on the bed as though someone was lying there. There was a suspicion that the spirit of a 4-year-old child who had been smothered with a pillow by her father may be responsible for the incidents. Peggy had been given items of furniture from the house of the little girl when she moved into her property in Enfield. Peggy made sure to throw out any furniture belonging to the little girl's former house, but the activity continued. On Sunday, October 16th, several chairs and furniture throughout the house, along with the kitchen table and chair, were overturned by the poltergeist. Now, these photos right here are once again some of the items that were thrown about by the supposed poltergeist. This was that's kind of weird. I don't know what just oh, wait a minute. Okay, I was gonna say, I know you guys can't see because the camera's messed up right now, but apparently my light just went off for no reason. That was weird. I hope I didn't just open some gateway or something to this. Okay, so yeah, these are some of the actual photos of some of the items that were thrown, and some of the things that did occur are quite remarkable here. I mean, the fact that a bed here was completely overturned, though. Again, some of these photos that you see here could have most likely have been staged. I don't want to say obviously 100% that this was true poltergeist activity, because of course you have to have some of that true skeptical side to it. And this is a really interesting photo right here. This is, I think that's Guy Playfair examining, I think it might be a dresser or a table, and a chair is actually right on top of it. To me, it almost looks like the chair scene from the movie Poltergeist, which actually turned out, we'll get to that. I don't know about tonight, but I will say this though, it actually does have some similarity to the table scene from the movie Poltergeist. I'm going to go back on StreamYard for just a second since I'm showing these photos, and I just wanted to see what everyone else is saying in the comments. Okay, so Eric here says, "Oh, I believe there was activity. It's the photo being picked up and thrown. I'm also having a problem. I'm having a problem with, since actually seen some picked up in their sleep. Also, paranormal con camera." And a camera that had night vision, the woman set herself up to find out why she was being bruised in the middle of the night. Yeah, you got a good point there, Eric. Something followed me home. Maybe. You never really know. You never know. And then as for the Para-Unity comments, let me just see let's see over here. What's good to see you, Rachel. David, hello. That's the problem with still photos. You never really know if it was poltergeist activity or human. Yeah, you got a real good point there, David. So yeah, it's hard to determine when it comes to photographs. I know sometimes even video footage or film footage is also a subject of debate, but I think photos are probably the hardest to decide whether or not this is actual, poltergeist activity captured on film. And I believe, nope, that's I thought I had more photos by then. Now this is original. However, it should be noted that this is original 16. Excuse me. Now this is original 16 millimeter film stock that was used to film the Hodgson family in their home, but on several occasions was unable. Oh, this right. Oh, you know what? Actually, wait. No, these are what I'm about to present are photographs. I know it's going to be a little bit hard to see because they're mostly black in color, but hopefully you got the photos do get a little bit brighter as I present each one. So this is like I was going to say, this is original 16 millimeter film stock that was used to film the Hodgson family in their home, but on several occasions was unable to get clear shots. Whether or not this was affected by the poltergeist itself is unknown. I mean, most likely, in my opinion, these bizarre images are most likely just malfunctions with the camera. But it's interesting to know that even for a camera like that with a 16 millimeter film, that the photos would present themselves that way. I mean, I'm not saying at all these images that you're seeing are paranormal at all. It's just basically the camera just kind of malfunctioning in a way. Check this out. Hello, Nicholas from France. Welcome. Okay, now Rachel here says if it's staged, it's a very professional staging. Very, very true, Rachel. You're absolutely right. Going back onto the StreamYard page, I'm going to start doing this more often so that way I can try to respond to and show people's comments. See if anybody else here. But no, these, like I said, these photos are just, it's bizarre. But again, we've often usually heard when it comes to paranormal investigations that when it comes to taking certain photography, sometimes the entity, the phenomena itself will often usually mess up the camera before any photos or video can be taken. So, okay, I'm not really seeing much in the comments, so I'm going right back to the presentation and continuing forward. Right here. These are actually some rare photographs. Once again, I know you could it's all up to debate, but these are rare photos because we've seen a lot of the pictures right now that the photos of Janet being levitated. These are rare photos that I found of Margaret actually being tossed around. I mean, well, maybe not levitating, but being tossed out of bed by an unseen force. I know obviously it's hard to see with the first photo, but you can clearly tell that is Margaret because it is on the other bed because she's on the right, Janet is on the left. And when this photo was taken, I think Margaret was completely by herself in the room at the time it was photographed. And this photo right here was where, as you can see, Peggy is sleeping in her bed this time. And Margaret, for some reason, I don't know if they were trying to do some kind of testing, but she decided to take Janet's place, and she too was tossed out. And then this photo right here, once again, of Margaret, as you can see clearly, this is not the same bedroom that they were in. They've never really figured out exactly where this was taken. This most likely could have been at a relative's house or maybe a neighbor's house that they stayed the night in. But you can see that her being thrown on the ground, was apparently it shows that she's being thrown to the ground by the apparent poltergeist that followed them. Okay, so David here says, right now all I see is the shapes are 10 blocks. They are okay. So David, what I was just saying before, I'll go back to it for just a second. They are actual images, but they were unable to get clear shots. The photo, so these are real photographs, but this is all that came out on some of the photographs during the investigation. I'm not saying at all that these are paranormal images whatsoever. It was something obviously messing with the camera that caused these images. So it was more of a technical issue than an actual paranormal issue, but they still say if it was caused by the poltergeist itself, obviously I don't think any of us will ever know for sure. So continuing on. Oh, I forgot to put a fade in that picture. Janet was the center of attention. It was the center of the activity, which is common in poltergeist cases, which predominantly affect girls and young women. This was a photo right here that was taken, another rare photo where I think it was a chair or a table that was knocked out right in front of her as she was asleep. Two physicians, Piero Brovetto and Vera Maxia, who wrote a paper called I guess I forgot to put in what the paper was called. Some conjectures about the mechanism of poltergeist phenomenon argue that children generate poltergeist activity by channeling energy into the quantum mechanical vacuum. This paper postulates that although poltergeist activity has been reported around the world and in different cultures, the one thing they all have in common is pubescent children or women or young women. The two physicians believe that during puberty, a modification of the body happens, which involves various organs, and these changes create fluctuations in electron activity that can cause disturbances up to a few meters around the outside of the brain. They believe that the extra fluctuations triggered by the pubescent brain can enhance virtual particles around the person, which increase the air pressure surrounding them, which could be responsible for moving objects. The word poltergeist is derived from the German words poltern, which means to crash or bang about, and Geist, which means mind, ghost, or spirit. And the earliest reports of poltergeist activity date back to 530 AD. A study of 500 cases carried out by parapsychologists Alan Galt and Tony Cornell found that poltergeist activity involved the movement of small objects by 64%, followed by rapping sounds by 48%, and the movement of large objects such as tables and chairs by 36%. Many of the witnesses to the haunting described hearing hollow knocks that were coming from all parts of the house. What differentiates a poltergeist knock from a human one is the difference in acoustic sound waves. When a human knocks on a surface, there is a full amplitude of sound which tapers off. A poltergeist rap starts quietly. Oh, this is what I wanted to have up. A poltergeist rap starts quietly before becoming louder and then fading away in a similar waveform to an earthquake. So this was apparently I think it was like a sound, like one of those kind of sound amplifiers, if you will. Um, Obviously, this demonstrates a normal rap by a normal human knock. And then right on top here, supposedly the poltergeist that was making the knocking sounds itself. Okay, so David here still shape, circle, triangle. It's really bizarre. It's really bizarre. According to Dr. Barry Colvin, a polyurethane technologist who carries out experimental psychical research, poltergeist sound signatures cannot be reproduced. The Hodgson house was not a happy one when the activity started, and it is commonly believed that poltergeist activity tends to start after major trauma or after major trauma or a life events. Oops. In the case of the Hodgsons, their father had abandoned them for a younger woman, and the family were left struggling in poverty. The two girls, Margaret and Janet, didn't have a good relationship with their father and were afraid of him. Billy wasn't with the family because of behavioral problems and was in a boarding school. William Rowe, a parapsychologist who studied many U.S. poltergeist events, I'm sure some of you guys probably remember him from some of the older paranormal documentary shows. I know he was featured on quite a number of them throughout I think he was on for a good portion. I do recall seeing him on some of the paranormal shows from the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. Sadly, of course, he's passed away since. But I do, if you guys remember one of the first pilot episodes of A Haunting, I do recall it was the Haunting in Georgia 2-part episode. I do recall that he was in that show. So it's interesting to know that he was also involved in this case too for Enfield. But he noticed a tendency for the person at the center of activity to exhibit symptoms of repressed anger or distress. He believed that the haunting was due to the discharge of mental energy. He described recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK. He theorized that the person was involuntarily employing RSPK in order to let out their repressed feelings. This certainly seemed to be the case with Janet, who had a license to swear profusely and displayed increasingly aggressive behavior during the haunting. She would suddenly rush across the room and bash her head on the wall, and her family became concerned that she would kill herself. She would have fits of rage where she would shout and swear and would have to be physically restrained. Now, what I'm about to show you guys, I have to admit, it will be somewhat a little bit disturbing because those moments of rage and her trance-like fits was captured on numerous occasions through photographs. So what I'm about to show is pretty, it's pretty unsettling. I mean, whether or not she actually is, whether these photos are, again, paranormal in nature, it's really hard to say. But she certainly did have her violent fits. So this was basically where Maurice Grosse was examining her during one of the trance fits. And this is when she started becoming violent. So this was when he had no choice but to restrain her on several occasions because of how dangerous she was becoming. I mean, you could see as each photo I demonstrate, she's becoming more violent. Yikes. Of even hit, I mean, in this photo, you can see she's clearly hitting him on the head. And then right after this, you can see that other people are now joining in to try to help him out to try to restrain her because it was getting pretty dangerous. Again, there is no actual film footage of this itself, but still the images here are pretty unsettling. And that wasn't all the photos. So now this was done by this was, I think, another moment of when she was having her trance fits. I think at this point it looks a little bit cruel, like how it looks like they're putting her head down, but it was just when you're in that kind of situation, all you're trying to do is just trying to restrain, and hopefully you could try to get them to calm down. This photo here, I think, is probably pretty unsettling to look at because you can clearly see the anger in her face. Just the way how she looks. It's very disturbing indeed, Rachel. It really is. I really kind of had to debate whether or not to have these, but in talking about this whole case, unfortunately, no, I had to, unfortunately. So, anyways, enough of that, though. Although the council would not rehouse the family, they agreed to send them away for a week-long break during half term. This was the actual note, I believe, that was given to the family about giving them a break from the house. They went to Clacton-on-Sea, and the only incident that occurred there was the sound of a dog barking from Janet's bed. This was one of the few photos, as far as I know, this is really one of the few photos where it shows maybe not everybody, but the majority of the family actually happy with themselves. I don't know if this was taken during their actual vacation, but this really was the only photo I could find of all of them smiling in this picture. On November 5th, when the Hodgsons returned from their holiday, Gross decided to confront and communicate with the spirit using raps. 1 knock for no and 2 knocks for yes. He asked some questions. Are you a male spirit? Knock, knock. Did you used to live in this house? Knock, knock. Was it more than 50 years ago? Knock, knock. Did you die in this house? Knock, knock. So most of the answers right now they're giving is yes. Okay, so David here just said, did they ever have her evaluated by a psychologist or a psychiatrist? David, we haven't gotten to that part yet, but eventually, yes. We will get, I'm not sure if or invite a priest to talk with her. Yeah, David, these questions that you're asking, it's actually going to be in the later part of the slideshow. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get to that today because this really is quite a big presentation slideshow that I have. So worst comes to worst, we may have to wait for those questions till next week, but I'll say for now, eventually they did. At the time they didn't, but we'll see how far we can go with the slideshow. Are you unhappy? Knock. Okay, so this is the first one where it was a no. Why are you here? Is it because you want to give us a special message? Knock. Are you having a game with me? Oh, it doesn't say if it was a knock or 2 knocks. That's weird. Either I must have missed it or it just didn't respond. The spirit then threw a cardboard box and pillow at Maurice Gross's face. Jeez. Now on Monday, November 10th, which was Janet's 12th birthday, Playfair invited an Argentinian psychic called Eduardo Balanovsky to visit. This photo was supposed to show up. Oh, wait, you know what? This was actually what I was supposed to say about Janet. That's why the photo showed up. It was intended after what I was saying about it, which was Janet's 12th birthday. He brought a magnetometer, which they used to look for anomalies in the electromagnetic field around the house. During his visit, Janet's pillow was thrown around, and the machines registered a change in electromagnetic field strength. On Wednesday, November 12th, Janet, on the advice of the psychic, left pens and paper around the house and called out to the entity to leave her a message, after which messages started appearing around the house. Peggy found one on the fridge that said, I will stay in this house. Do not read this to anyone or I will retaliate. The next message, which was found on the living room table, said, Can I have a tea bag? Peggy placed a tea bag on the table and a ripped tea bag manifested next to it. Peggy's ex turned up at the house and she showed him the messages. Once he had gone, Peggy apologized to the entity for showing him the messages, and another one appeared saying, It was a misunderstanding. Don't do it again. I know who that was. The writing was very similar to Janet's. On Monday, November 28th, Maurice Gross found Janet asleep under this bed. This photo was taken after. I don't know if this was during or afterwards, but Maurice Grosse found Janet asleep under this bed twice within a 5-minute period. She was completely limp as if unconscious. In following, Janet and her mattress were shot onto the floor, and 20 minutes after that, she was found in the corner of on the floor, having apparently been thrown a distance of 14 feet. On Tuesday, November 29th, the first medium, a Brazilian psychic called Luis Gasparetto, visited the family. He was accompanied by his interpreter, the second medium, Elsie Dubgrasa, who was a member of the healing department of Sao Paulo State Spiritist Federation. They offered some spiritual healing to the family, which gave some respite, which apparently also had some beneficial effect on Janet's behavior. Lewis would go into a trance-like state and produce drawings and paintings, and after they left, Janet began producing disturbing bloody pictures whilst in a trance. She also wrote the name Watson over and over on a page. It turned out that a family called Watson had lived in the house, and the wife had died of a tumor in her throat in a similar way to one of the bloody pictures Janet had drawn. Now, I'm just going to say right now, I actually did find those photographs. I must warn you guys once again, some of these photos you're about to see may be disturbing for some viewers. So these are the actual drawings that Janet had made. And my God, for a kid only 12 years old to make those type of drawings, I mean, obviously Janet was a good kid, but these drawings are almost like something out of a serial killer would have done when they were a child. Like, holy cow. Now, I think this photo kind of makes sense, the one here in the middle, because if I'm correct, I think this was the image that was just being spoken about, how the wife of Watson had a tumor growing in her throat, and you could see blood pouring out of the neck on this in this drawing. Very, very disturbing stuff. I can't even imagine what Peggy must have thought when these photos turned up. No, you're fine, David. Don't worry about it. You're good. Before I continue onwards, I'm going to go back to StreamYard once again, see how everybody says. Let's see. Okay, so Eric here says, yeah, because these are oddly specific pictures. I use 16 millimeter and have never seen those odd shit. Yeah. Remember that I lived before cell phones existed. And yes, again, caused by a girl going through puberty. Not sure what you mean by perfect exactly. Sorry, like I said, I can't see when I'm doing this, unfortunately. And that's why it started and followed them around. That's correct. Hello, Charles. Good to see you. Yeah, basically one of the first EMF meters, definitely. Okay. All right, so going back. Hang on one second. Okay. So, David, here's the answer to your other question. Towards the end of November, a doctor was called to the house and he administered 10 milligrams of Valium in order to sedate her. After being sedated, Janet levitated and landed on a radio where she was discovered by John, Peggy's brother. Again, we don't know for a fact if she truly did levitate, but the fact that she landed on the radio, I mean, you could see in this photo of John, he looks pretty disturbed in this picture of seeing where Janet was laying. It's very, very creepy stuff. Unfortunately, Janet wasn't the only person affected by the poltergeist. Her mother claimed to know when events were about to take place, as she would get a headache, and Margaret at one point shared the same dreams. However, the activity always followed Janet. This is some of the other photos here where it kind of does focus more on Margaret, where there's clearly a state of fear in her eyes, and you could see she looks very distraught in this photo from everything that was happening. I mean, This poor kid, really. Whether it was paranormal or not, it really obviously took a toll on this family. Apparitions eventually started to appear, and a neighbor's brother saw a light about a foot tall burning in the Hodgson's window before fading away. Another neighbor and Peggy saw the same elderly woman in different windows independently of each other. Johnny saw an old man with big teeth staring at him. One day, Maurice and a neighbor heard one of the Hodgson kids that they couldn't move and that something was holding his leg. I bet it was either Billy or Johnny. They never really said exactly which. It was obviously one of the Hodgson boys, but didn't say exactly which one. I bet it was probably Johnny. In all, it was believed that around 15 different people saw some kind of supernatural activity during the haunting. Just very quickly before we continue, I got to check to see how much time I have left because I only got till 6 o'clock. Okay, so it's 5:46 now. So I only got about 15 minutes left. So we'll see how much further we can go with this and just continue to proceed. All right. John Hasted, a physicist at London's Birkbeck College, strapped Janet to a Blundell couch, which is an apparatus used to measure such anomalies, found that her weight increased in a way that couldn't be explained. He reported 2 sudden 5-second weight increase signals, about 1 kilogram, and a minute gradual weight increase, which eventually returns to normal, an anomaly he was unable to explain. He was further intrigued by a light bulb that exploded in an unusual way, finding that one of the glass supports on which the filament was mounted had snapped, an event he considered very rare and similar unexplainable incident. Another physicist, David Robertson, carried out experiments at Enfield. He attempted to secretly video Janet, but found it impossible to conceal the equipment from her. He saw several unexplained incidents, such as a sideboard overturning, Janet levitating, and the teleportation of a large cushion being transported to the roof. The overturning of a sideboard, his head being struck by a flying plate, his hair pulled when he slept on the floor of the front room, among other things. Now, I know some of you guys are also probably wondering why I don't have photos of these other people. Every time I put these, just a quick word of note, every time that I do these slideshows, I do try to find the images of every name that I find, and I was unable to find photos of everyone. So that's why I only have a photo of John Hasted, in case anyone asks. David now just said, it's starting to sound less poltergeist and more demonic, especially the unexplainable weight gain. I don't know if I would really call it demonic, but it definitely became a lot more of certainly at least a human spirit activity. I mean, maybe no one really had ever used, as far as I'm concerned, no one really had ever really used the term demonic. In this case, I don't think really anybody thought it was a demon. Of course, obviously, me being one, I try to avoid that term on several occasions, but it definitely was I think it definitely was some type of entity that was in this house. And yes, Rachel, whatever was, regardless of human or not, whatever this entity was, it was definitely very powerful. A local psychiatrist examined the girls and maintained that if they were left alone, then the disturbances would stop. This did not happen, however. Janet was given a detailed physical and psychological assessment. Yep, here you go, David. Here's the question you were asking early a few minutes ago. Janet was given a detailed physical and psychological assessment at London's Maudsley Institute of Neuropsychiatry by Dr. Peter Fenwick. No abnormality was discovered, such as damage to the brain or evidence of epilepsy. Hypnosis similarly failed to uncover any evidence of psychological frailty. Playfair undertook some research that found similarities with some manifestations of Tourette's syndrome, including explosive utterances, barking, and swearing. When medical doctors were called out, they usually prescribed calming drugs to help Janet sleep. National press reporters, photographers, and television crews used different approaches to try to uncover the reason for the phenomena. Some introduced professional magicians to try to discover fraudulent activity. Others brought spirit mediums to make contact with the haunting entity. A somewhat theatrical performance by another medium, Gary Shurick, also resulted in relative calm for a short while. Matthew Manning, a healer and psychic, visited the Hodgsons wishing to share knowledge of such events from his own experiences, which he believed originated from an individual's own energy. This was the only photo I was able to find of Matthew Manning actually investigating and attempting to communicate with the entity. Manning, in fact, this is what I believe was happening in this photo. I got to make a space out of it. Manning said that he had experienced headaches of a similar nature to Peggy's at times when phenomena was about to take place. It's interesting to note how some of the activity prior before it happened, that some of the individuals here were experiencing headaches just before the activity started, almost like it was acting kind of like a precursor to what was about to happen. On Saturday, December 3rd, 3 months after the start of the disturbances, Janet was pulled out of her bed and Maurice found her sliding down the stairs head first while she was still asleep. This was the only, again, as far as I know, this was the only photo that I could find that was actually taken right before she was pulled down to the stairs. It's quite a shocking photo right there. A couple days later, another member of the SPR joined the team, a student physicist called David Roberts. More members of the SPR joined them on Saturday, December 10th. Dr. John Beloff and, that was supposed to go the opposite direction. Dr. John Beloff and Anita Gregory. The group challenged the entity to speak. An anomalous voice began to emanate from Janet. It started as a series of whistles and dog-like barks. Then Janet entered a trance-like state. Then a deep, gruff, scratchy voice speaking through her, calling himself Joe Watson, and developed into a human voice, that of an elderly male, harsh and guttural. This was one of the photos that she was in a trance, in fact, and it was quite unlike Janet's. Joe claimed that he had lived in the house, a fact seemingly unknown to Janet. It habitually swore and claimed to still be living and to sleep in Janet's bed. However, the next night, on Sunday, December 11th, the voice said that his name was Bill Wilkins, and on Tuesday, December 13th, Maurice Gross's son, Richard, who was a newly qualified solicitor, helped his father interrogate the presence and such, is the only member of the Law Society to have cross-examined a ghost. Gross recalls how every breakfast time my father would play a tape or two. It started off with bangs and noises. With noises, bangs. Then it moved on to banging in response to questioning. The spirit responded with banging in response to questions, but the man's gruff and raspy voice was soon heard when the children were present in the room, coming from somewhere behind Janet's neck while her lips hardly seemed to move. This photo of Maurice was actually supposed to show up right at the beginning of the first sentence. So sorry, the photo showed up a little bit later. Okay, so as I said before, the voice identified itself as Bill Wilkins, who had died in the house at the age of 72 years before. Richard asked him how he died, and he said, I went blind. I had a hemorrhage. I fell asleep and I died in a chair in the corner downstairs. The story of dying in a corner of the living room was later confirmed by Bill's son Terry, and that this was indeed how his father had died. When Playfair asked why he was invisible, Bill said, "I'm invisible because I'm a ghost." Now, we only got a few minutes left. This is only going to be about 4 minutes. I got a video here that I'm going to present. These Enfield poltergeist recordings feature the alleged poltergeist referred to as Bill, responding to various questions via the body of Janet. The gruff voice became synonymous with the case. Skeptics believe that Janet was simply disguising her voice, while others saw it as proof that she was possessed. This is, I know it looks just like a photo, but it's actually a video. This contains one of the actual recordings of this possession. I have not heard this myself yet, so I don't know what to expect, but I just want to say right now, regardless of whether she was truly possessed or not, what you are about to hear, once again, as a warning, may be disturbing to some listeners. So viewer and listener discretion is advised. Here, hopefully you guys can hear it.
Oh, shit. We just found no slave and it's talking. Janet, Margaret, and Betty, oh, the slave is talking. I'm good. Hello, Mr. Playfair. Margaret's asleep and I'm talking. I'm Betty. Margaret, Johnny, up at our station was home. Just Margaret. Hang on the floor. Wait, I'm Billy. Hello, Ray. Bang on the floor. And they both come up. Yeah. Yeah. That'll bring them all. Hello. That well. Well, great. Well, right. Yeah. That's good. You can do I'm going to bang on the floor and I'll shout. Pardon. Bring Graham up here. Yeah. Well, straight. That's good. You can do Mr. Glass. Mr. Glass. Lights gone off. Lights gone off. Mr. Glass. Lights gone off. Lights gone off. Come on. You don't come up and smash a window. Yeah.
That's a very creepy voice.
Guess what? Janet, Margaret, they're asleep when we are talking. Call me to loud. I do that again. Go to ground.
Hey, Natalie.
Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown. Mr. Gross! Quick! Mr. Gross! Oh, something. I was in the car. Look, Charlie. Oh, God, my soul, Margaret. She was not her niece. Margaret She's lonely. Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Goodbye.
How he did that. Now you're going to tell me how you knocked that settee over. Come on, tell me how you knocked it over.
By the bottom.
You what?
This must be different recordings. It can't just be one recording here.
Yes.
Underneath.
Underneath it, yes.
Yes.
What did you do? Then what did you do?
Make Janet come in the room first.
Why did you make?
Oh, it's a
why
little
did
bit
you
longer
make
than
Janet
expected.
Come in the room first?
So she gets the blame.
So she gets the blame.
Yes.
Could you do it if Margaret came in the room first?
Might be her.
Or if Mrs. Hodgson came in the room first? Could you do it then?
No, she's too old.
She's too old. Could you do it if I came in the room first?
No.
Well, what's age got to do with it? What difference does it make how old?
Take energy from young people, not old ones.
Oh, you only take energy?
Yes.
Why can't you take energy from old people?
I use it all in the day.
Pardon?
I use it all.
Oh, old people use more energy during the day. And do young people store it up then?
Yes.
How do you take their energy?
Electric shock.
You take it by electric shocks.
Mine.
Do you take electrical energy then?
Yes, I can.
If you can.
I can take electric.
You can take electrical
Yes.
If you don't take that energy, could you tip the settee up if you didn't take the energy?
No, I
Just
couldn't.
5 minutes left of this.
Impossible.
Yes.
You always have to use energy from people.
Yes.
Can't you take energy from anything else?
No.
You can't.
No.
What else can you do with energy?
Tip the chairs over, pull the plugs out,
Yeah, but you can do other things.
put books through the window.
Put books through the window. Who put the books through the window?
I did.
You did.
I took a shortcut and put it through it.
Ah, I see. How would you have done, if I'd have said to you, put that book through the window without breaking the window, how would you have done it?
Open the window and thrown it.
Sorry?
Opened the window and thrown it out.
You would have opened the window and thrown it out.
It was a biggest window, front room.
Yeah. But could you have thrown it through the glass itself without breaking the glass?
Yes.
How would you do that then?
You materialised it one night in it.
You dematerialise it?
Yes.
How do you do that then?
I don't know, but I'll tell you somehow, don't I?
You don't know how you do it.
No. A gift.
It's a gift, is it? Well, surely you should know how to do it.
Is that it? Or hang on 1 second, because I was on the
Let me hear you
oh.
say my name.
Oh, there's one more
Let me hear
recording.
you say
Okay.
my name. That's not my name. Come on, my name's Morris. Let me hear you say it. Morris. Say Dr. Belloc. Come on, let me hear you say that. Come on. Let's hear you say Dr. Belloc. Goodness sake, could you close that door down? Say Dr. Belloc. Now, if you scrape the bed, I can't hear you talking. Now, say Dr. Belloc. Come on. Come on, say it for me, Dr. Belloc. Dr. Belloc. Right, that's good. Shut the door. I'm 72 years old. I come from Jewel Great Job. And I have right near the church where Rita lives. And all my friends come from there as well. And we all like a cake and go to the pub. And then we pick your house. Because I used to live here. And I will do this a lot. And if you don't get anyone
tell me whether you remember what happened to you when you died? Just before you died and just after you died?
Days before I died, my day, I went blind. Then I had an hemorrhage, and I fell asleep, and I died in a chair in the corner downstairs.
Bill, if you're there, would you answer me the following question? What have you done with Denise's 30p?
Headed down to the radio downstairs.
Sorry, Bill, can you say that again, please?
Headed down to the radio downstairs.
Right, Bill, I'll go and look. Thanks ever so much.
All right, there's just another minute.
Who are you?
I'm invisible.
You're invisible. Why are you invisible?
So much H-O-S-T.
Oh, that's why Ghost was spelled like that.
Yes, all of them. All the dogs, 68 dogs.
What do you got 68 dogs for?
So that they can protect me from you killing me. They can guide you right on.
How can we kill you, Bill?
You can shoot me off.
Now, how can we shoot you if we can't see you, Bill?
One man to God.
Sorry, I didn't hear that, Bill.
One man to God.
By praying to God. So, what you're saying is we could get rid of you by praying to God.
Yes.
Oh. Hell is it doing? Wow, that was quite disturbing. Okay, so unfortunately, guys, I do actually have to get off here because I just realized what time it was. So I do apologize for it. I mean, honestly, I know I know there's another show on one of the other networks that's supposed to run right after me. So I do apologize. So I'm just going to go through these comments very, very quickly just before I get off here. Yes, because what people call demons are not demons. What is common for mediums? Oh, which is common to mediums. Yep. What's up, Kelly? Good to see you. If you're talking about the recordings, I'm not sure. I wasn't really able to see it, but it's still under a subject of debate. You would have to ask Nick about that one. He did the research. Yep, no, it's a male voice mixed in with hers. You can see Natalie. Remember the video of this? It was frightening to watch her sitting there and hearing that. Yes, indeed. Regardless whether or not she was, whether or not she actually was possessed or not, that was still quite a creepy recording. It's hard. And yes, at the same time, though, it is hard to make that low pitch and voice. I mean, I could not even make that voice at all. That little girl would not know of any of those words. Indeed. Indeed. He asked her to say that because it's hard to keep that tone of voice while saying certain words. Yes. What's up, Sarah? Bye, Sarah. And yes, very creepy indeed, Charles. Again, I would definitely, if I didn't have another show following after me, I think it would have been something that I would have continued onward. And just responding to the comments in the Para-Unity Network chat, is that two spirits talking to her? It's possible. I'm not sure, but they said it's mostly by Bill Wilkins. everything here is so similar to the events in David here says everything that here is so similar to the events in Pontefract at 30 East Drive. I'm not really sure. I never heard of that one, David. You'll have to touch base with me so I can understand more what that is. Good to see you, Marianne. Unfortunately, I'm about to come off. Yes, Rachel, indeed. It's that was very creepy stuff. And like I said earlier, right at the beginning, I have never heard of that recording. So this was a first timer for me as well. So kind of took me a little bit by surprise, but I got to say though, very creepy. Certainly the ending with all that growling was very disturbing. Unfortunately, that's not even all the worst of it yet. So guess what? We're going to have to make a part 2 of the Enfield Poltergeist. So I just want to say, just before I get off, thank you guys so much for coming on, hanging out and listening and watching this. I didn't expect this the way it goes. I do apologize. I wasn't on camera for the longest time because I did have an issue. Of course, now the camera is back to working, so that's good to have. And yeah, we'll pick up from where we left off next week. Of course, I'll see some of you guys tomorrow afternoon for the To the Grave and Back with Lois and Rosie, and we're going to be talking about the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. So that'll be an interesting topic. So yes, indeed, Natalie, part 2. So thank you guys. I got to get off here. Thank you guys all so much. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow, but if you're going to wait till next week for part 2, we'll see you next week then. You guys all have a great night.